How many of you have practiced 话头 before? Please raise your hand. Or 公案. Please raise your hand. What is 话头? I'll explain. How many of you have not practiced it but heard these terms before? Please raise your hand. Okay. The surface meaning of 公案 and 话头is this. A 公案 is a public case. It's a borrowed term from the Chinese legal system, as in law cases. 公案. Literally, it means public case. 公, public case. 案. And it is borrowed to describe cases of insight, revelation, enlightenment of previous masters. And the precursor to 公案 within Chan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, are what is called 年古, which literally translates to pick up an ancient. Pick up the ancients. Pick up the ancients. The ancients what? The ancient stories and so on. So as you see, 公案, 年古 are basically narratives, stories. In other words, it's a genre, it's a class of text. It's a class of text. It's a body of text, which constitutes many different collections. It began in the 10th century, flourished in the 11th and 12th century in China. The reason why it's borrowed from the legal cases, because as this kind of literature began to snowball, Chan masters in various generations began to use them as points of departure, objects of commentary. And their comments are usually an assessment of their profundity or their shallowness, or their essential message. almost like judges in court reviews each case by case, and decides what is what, decides the various levels. You see? So it became a kind of literary phenomena, actually, that really took off, influenced all sectors of the society. The educated elite were really involved in it, fascinated by it. Chan masters demonstrated their understanding by providing capping phrases and pointers to insight, demonstrating different levels of understanding, like judges. So that's Gong'an, public cases of enlightenment that became text, began in 10th century, flourished in 12th. Huatou began later. Although there is evidence that it was used as early as the 9th century. Huatou. Literally, Hua means spoken word. Tou means the source, the beginning. The origin. What is the origin of spoken words? What is that which lies before words, in other words? Sounds? The source? What's the source of sounds then? Throat? Huh? Vibration? Vibrations of what? Air. But it's a particular type of sound. It's not kind of natural sounds, like the natural world. It's words and language, right? Words and language can be understood as a kind of sound. Right? What is the origin of words and language? Need to communicate. Like that word, the need to communicate. Who said that? That source. You see? That source. Who's the one who said that? If it's truly no one, then where does the word come from? If it's someone, then who is it? What is it? That's Huatou. There's also a confluence of Huatou in its association with Gong'an. Huatou as the origin, the genesis of words and language, of narratives, the source of that. How that relates to Gong'an is, what is the source of this Gong'an, these words this language, this story, this case. So there's an overlap. Within each story, the turning words, turning phrase, turning point that caused someone to have a transformative experience. Practitioners began to use those as 话头, use those turning words, which is called 转语, 转语, turning words, the catalyst, right? As the 话, as the words. And what is the source of that? How did practitioner A, upon hearing those words, perceived his true nature? You see? So each public case, 公案, has this essential gist, essential point. And practitioners start to relive those experiences in order to bring the Dharma alive in themselves. To use the words to understand the source, to understand who they are. So, Gong An and Hua Tou. Now Gong An has another layer of meaning, which is kind of opportunities to transform, opportunities to for realization. Right? Besides Gong'an as a genre, as a text, it also is opportunities. Within those opportunities, there's the essential words or word. Does that make sense so far? Follow me? Okay. We do not know when this phenomena truly started. After all, it's impossible that someone just sat down, let me just start collecting stories. And about 2 centuries later, people will start using them as practice and opportunity to realize something. Right? How did they begin? How did they begin? Actually begins at the Buddha's time. At the Buddha's time. Chan Zen Buddhism did not invent this. The course that Hua Tou and Gong'an practices take us is the same path that all practitioners have to go through. It doesn't matter what method one uses. And it is the same path that all of you, each and every one of you, is taking now. How? I've said from the first day that all of you should bring your mind to the present moment. Isolate everything. Isolate from everything to the present. Right? Right? Because it is the present moment. Collapsing all of our deluded thinking, conceptualization, scatter thought, and reducing them, collapsing them into a single point. So, genuinely, truly, your sense of who you are only exists in this instant by instant by instant by instant, no longer conditioned by the past, no longer shaped by your expectation of the future. Words forgotten. Concepts, narrative, images, identities about ourselves is just forgotten. Those are scattered. That belongs to the realm of discrimination, scatter mind. These things collapse into a single point. You remember what I said about that? Until walking, you don't know you're walking. Are you walking? You're walking. Following the routine. Eating. You have not tasted a single grain of rice. To the practitioner, he or she has not eaten one single rice. They're just on the method. Looking into the mirror, what? Danwen. What happens in that condition when a person looks into the mirror? Thank you, Danwen. Right? You don't recognize yourself. The past memory, concepts, narrative doesn't come into play. You're just still on the method. All practitioners must go through this. And early in the Buddhist scriptures, we see the Buddha using like Chan methods. Right? Someone comes along for the first time, perhaps been practicing some method, or the mind just at that precise point where the mind has nothing except just the simplicity of the present moment, caught by the Buddha. That person comes and hears the Dharma talk. Totally unexpected, not anticipating anything, not trying to get rid of anything, no grasping, no rejecting, ready to sit down and caught by the Buddha. When the eyes meet, the person can look up. It's still lay people. The Buddha recognized these states of mind and says, "Welcome, home leaver." It's like, welcome, bhikshu, bhikshuni, monastics. Yeah, imagine you, in your lay clothes, lay hair, coming to Dharma talk. That's the skill of the master, able to recognize these moments. Right? So it's not necessarily that you have to sit in meditation for 20 years and then cultivate the mind, the present. Sometimes these moments are in our daily life. Accidentally. Except we don't recognize it. They're so fleeting. Next moment, we scatter thought. So these moments, when the mind is quiet, nothing really on the mind, the Buddha sees them coming and says, "Welcome, monk." Clearly, that guy is not a monk. He's a layperson. Upon hearing that, enlightenment. the sutra talk about them. Suddenly, hairs fall out. robes, monastic robes, right? Several times. The early texts, even in early texts, it talks about, for example, the Buddha's attendant monk, Ananda. Ananda was a person who always relied on the Buddha. He's Buddha's cousin, younger cousin. He said, Buddha will save me. Buddha will deliver me. So it's a fabulous memory, able to remember all the sutras, able to repeat all the Dharma, and other people here get enlightened except him. He just repeats, like a parrot. The Buddha passes away. He's devastated. He's in tears. Who's going to save me now? Who's going to save me now? The Buddha entered nirvana. My big Dharma brother, Mahakashyapa will save me. Mahakashyapa will save me. Go to Mahakashyapa and say, get out. You've been attending the Buddha all these years. And you've gotten nothing out of my sight. Tomorrow, we will reconvene because Mahakashyapa came at the Buddha's funeral. Everyone tried to light the fire. The Buddha's cremation, it wouldn't light. It just wouldn't light until Mahakashyapa came. Fire suddenly came because he was the Buddha's number one successor. He's the Dharma heir. He's the one the Buddha said, don't enter nirvana. Just in case you don't know, Mahakashyapa, he's not in nirvana yet. He left behind. He may be still among us. Mahakashyapa is waiting for Maitreya Buddha, supposedly, to give Maitreya Shakyamuni Buddha's robes. So he supposedly entered samadhi, waiting for Maitreya, the next Buddha, which is 56 million years from the time the Buddha passed away. 56 million. So he's still in samadhi. So he's the successor. So he came. The Buddha's funeral pyre lit up. Buddha passed away. And he overheard someone, other monks, said, oh, so glad that old guy is dead now. Now we can do what we want. No one's going to tell us what to do. Gosh. Yeah. He heard that. He says, we will compile the Buddha's teaching to gather all the Buddha's teaching and the codes of conduct to make sure that survives, to make sure that that will pass down. Right? So Ananda comes to Mahakashyapa wanting to be saved. Mahakashyapa did something very unique. Everyone knows that Ananda has the most fabulous memory. He has to be at the meeting. He has to recite the scriptures. He's been with the Buddha the longest. He remembers everything. Teachings are passed down orally. He has to be there. All the arhats, including Mahakashyapa, supposedly, 499, says, we have to invite Ananda. Mahakashyapa says, no, he's not an arhat. He said it right in front of Ananda. Says, he's not an arhat, not allowed to come. Ananda was broken-hearted. It's like my teacher left and my Dharma brother abandoned me. It's like an orphan. So he says, well, you got till tomorrow morning to be an arhat. Now, off you go. Ananda, at that time, started to rely on himself. He did sitting meditation, walking meditation, sitting meditation. Every possible practice he just did. He completely exhausted himself. You can imagine the kind of stress he was under, right? He wasn't thinking, relax, natural, clear. Just sit. Don't reject, don't grasp. He was furious with grasping. He was burning with grasping, burning with the poison of grasping, rejecting, grasping, rejecting, success, failure, success, failure. I have till tomorrow morning. Success, failure, success, failure. That is the genius of Gong'an practice. That is the genius of Huatou practice.